to Cooking with Nana Sue. Today we're going to make homemade chicken noodle soup with Butterballs. What are Butterballs? Well, they are little round balls that are made out of breadcrumbs and butter and a little bit of canned evaporated milk. And my grandma taught my mother how to make it, and so I'm passing that on to you. She also, both my grandmas, Grandma Cloud and Grandma Fechner, made their own noodles. I think probably everybody did back in the days of old. And we're going to make a small batch today. We're going to use 2 eggs, half a teaspoon of salt, and flour. That's all you have to use to make the noodles. Before we get started, I'll tell you that over here in this pot, I have chicken broth. And you can either just use water and chicken bouillon cubes, or if when you're cooking chicken in a crock pot, you save that juice that the chicken is cooked in and freeze it, and then you can pop it out of that freezer and put it in the pan, and it thaws really, really fast. So that's already ready to go. We're going to make our noodles first, then our Butterballs, and then we're going to get the broth rolling in a rolling boil, and we will cook them all together. So this will be fun. Let's get started with our noodles. So here we have 2 eggs. Remember to save your shells because they will help your tomato plants grow big, nice tomatoes. Not that we have any tomato plants, but my father-in-law does. And it says he has cherry tomatoes growing out of his ears. We've been getting a lot of those, haven't we, Jamie?
Yep.
Half a teaspoon of salt. Jamie has been making lots of salsa for us, and it is so good, so very good. Okay, so I'm just whisking these 2 eggs with a fork, and just whisk it up. Now we're going to add our flour. There's a tricky part about adding your flour. You don't want to add too much at the very beginning. So that's probably 1.5 cups, okay? So we're just whisking it up with this fork. And it's already coming together. Now, one thing about this, I want to tell you what I did wrong the very first time I made noodles on my own, because I loved watching my mom make them. But I added too much flour, and then the dough, you can't work with it. It is hard as a rock. And so I learned really quick to add the flour slowly. And then you're going to work it into a smooth ball by kneading it on a flour table. Okay, so that's probably as good as we're going to get. It's still crumbly, you see that? But now we're going to spread a little bit of flour out here, and we're going to work it with our hands. All right, put flour on your hands. Make sure you have washed your hands. I did wash my hands, as always, and you just kind of start kneading it together. Now, the fun part is when you make the noodles. So we'll come back when I'm done kneading this, and I'll show you how to roll out the dough. Okay, so I've been kneading it less than 5 minutes. And as you see, it's come together really nice. It's smooth. It's not too hard, but it's still pliable. We're going to cut this into three pieces just to make it easier to manage and handle. And my mom always would coat the cut edges with flour. She would do that. Okay, so now we've got our trusty rolling pin, and we're going to roll out and just make a little plate size roll. Just keep lots of flour on it, because that's going to be important so that it doesn't stick. We're making noodles out of this. And so we don't have a noodle cutter. They have them now, you know, electric ones for your KitchenAids, but they didn't do it that way back in the olden days. So we're going to do it the way my grandmas did, and the way they taught my mom how to do it. Another thing is that you'll see this more often than not, that people let their noodles dry all day long. After they make their noodles, they let them sit out on tables. not in piles, but just all single layers. Let them dry for hours and hours and hours before they bake them. Not my grandma's. No. And so that's a really happy thing to learn, because who has time for that? Jamie, do you have time for that?
Nope.
No one has time for that. Okay, so we've got a pretty thin piece of dough here. I don't know if you can see, but it's pretty thin. I would say 2 millimeters in thickness. Okay, so this is important. You're gonna layer it with some flour on top, okay? And then you're gonna roll it up lightly. Don't do it tight, or you're gonna have a problem. And let's get this cutting board over here, and I'm gonna show you. We're gonna just make little cuts, okay? They're 1/4 of an inch in width. Jamie's gonna do a close-up of them, okay? They can be thicker, they can be smaller. Now my mom got to where she would just do it super fast, so that's what I'm doing. And you just gotta be careful, don't cut your fingers. But this, some people like their noodles thicker, some like them narrower. Now this was the part that I loved to do as a little girl. You would just do this to unroll them. Just get in there. I add a little bit more flour to the pile because you don't want them sticking together at all. We're gonna just set that to the side. Well, let's keep them on there and do another one. We'll come back when we have them all done. Okay, we've made our noodles, and now we're getting ready to make our butterballs. Now we're making a small batch, so this is 1/3 cup of butter, 1 2/3 cup breadcrumbs. We're gonna use 1 egg with this, and then pet milk is what my grandma has on the recipe card, but it's evaporated milk, and I just bought. Great value. We need a little bit of salt and a little bit of allspice. So let's get started. We're going to put the egg in. Just put everything in, and you're going to stir it all together. Okay, we're going to put that eggshell out there. Let's put in the milk. We shake it up, and it tells you that on the can. Well, guess what? We're going to put our breadcrumbs in first so that we can use this to measure our milk. And we need 1/3 cup of milk. So, of the evaporated milk. So, put that in there. Now, let's get our salt. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of allspice. All right, we're going to mix it up. Jamie, can you hand me a fork? She loves having me. So great. Thank you so much. All right. Just mix it up. All right. You may have to add a little bit more of the milk if it's too dry, if it's not coming together. See, it's crumbly. You just want all that butter mixed in and through. I've ordered a Dutch dough whisk, and that's going to be so great when that comes in. Especially, I don't like the sound of the fork scraping against the glass. Okay, let's look at it. Oh yeah, do you see how that just comes together? That's what you want. And then we're just going to make little walnut sizes of butterballs. Little balls of butter. Now I'll do a couple more for you, and then we'll come back when we're done. Okay. Okay, we have our noodles made, we've got our butterballs made, and then I had a little bit of leftover chicken, and that's a perfect thing to do with your leftover chicken. Chop it up and then just put it in your boiling broth. Remember, it's water with bouillon, chicken bouillon, or actual broth from cooking a chicken. So we've got that boiling and it's going good. We're going to drop in, here's our butterballs. See how and that recipe amount makes about 20 little butterballs. So we're going to put those in second. We're going to put our noodles in first. So make sure your water's boiling quickly, and then you just start dropping it in. Remember, you don't have to let them set and dry out, but you can if you want to. I never have, though. So I don't know what I'm missing, do I? Okay, all of that goes in. And we're going to let that water get a little bit more bubbly again, because we just put in a lot of cold things, so it drops the temperature of the broth. And then we're going to put our Butterballs in, and we're going to let them cook for about 20 minutes. I like to taste test things to make sure they're done. So we give it about 20 minutes, and we know for sure they'll be close if not done. And you can see that the noodles are already rising and cooking just by hitting that hot broth. Okay, it's just about time to add the Butterballs. Now let me give you a little tip. If you did not make the Butterballs and you just wanted to make chicken noodle soup, to make it more brothy, especially if you just use water and chicken bouillon cubes, here's a trick that I've learned. Add a little bit of butter, like a tablespoon or two, and that gives it more of a brothy look, and it's so much better. But you don't really have to do that with Butterballs because you're dropping in hunks of butter. So, okay, starting to boil around the edges. I'm going to go ahead and start dropping them in. We'll come back when they're done. Okay, so we've been letting our soup cook for 20 minutes, and it is done. I want to show you what the inside of a Butterball should look like when it's cooked. Take one out. Oh, zoom in on that, Jamie. It's light and fluffy. It's so good. It's so hot right now. We're not going to taste it in front of you guys, but it is so good, and I hope you try it. Until next time, we'll see you later.